A decade ago, the world was a place of constant chaos. The war had consumed everything, leaving only rubble and broken dreams in its wake. But even in the darkest times, there were moments that defied the harsh reality of the battlefield. One such moment came when a young soldier named Alex found himself facing something he could never have imagined. It was a cold, rainy night, and Alex's platoon had been assigned to secure a military outpost near the outskirts of the city. The battle raged on in the distance, but this area was eerily quiet. The sounds of gunfire and explosions were muffled, almost as if they were in a different world. As Alex made his way through the broken buildings, scanning for enemy movement, something caught his eye. A figure lying in the middle of the road. At first, he thought it was a casualty. Another soldier, perhaps, or a civilian caught in the crossfire. But as he approached, his heart skipped a beat. The figure wasn't human. It was a girl, lying motionless on the ground, her body bruised and battered. Her skin was a strange, vibrant blue, unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with sharp, alien eyes that glistened even in the dim light. She was breathing, but just barely. The soldier's training kicked in, and without thinking, he rushed to her side, checking her vitals. "Hey, are you alive?" he whispered, more to himself than to her. The girl didn't respond. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, her breath shallow and ragged. Alex's mind raced. He knew he had no time to waste. He couldn't leave her here to die. The enemy could be nearby, and the situation was only going to get worse. Yet, something about the girl, lying helplessly on the ground, made it impossible for him to walk away. Alex looked around, making sure no one was watching, then gently lifted her into his arms. His heart pounded as he hurriedly moved toward the shelter of an abandoned building nearby. The girl was light but fragile, and he had to be careful not to jostle her too much. Inside the building, Alex found a small, dusty room to lay her down. His mind was racing, unsure of what he had gotten himself into. What was she? Where had she come from? And why was she here, in the middle of a war zone? He did the best he could to tend to her injuries. His hands moved quickly, trying to stop the bleeding from a gash on her forehead. The blood was dark, almost black, and the sight sent a chill down his spine. He had seen many injuries in his time on the battlefield, but nothing like this. The girl's skin, her strange color, and the unmistakable sense of something otherworldly about her made Alex feel like he was living in a dream. As he worked, the girl's eyes opened again, this time focusing on him. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. She looked at him, and for a moment, there was a strange connection between them, as if time itself had paused. The girl's lips parted, and she whispered in a soft, alien language that Alex couldn't understand. "Who are you?" he stammered, unsure if she could even hear him. He didn't know what to say. He had never met anyone like her, and he had certainly never been trained for this kind of situation. She stared at him for a long moment, her eyes filled with confusion. Then she closed her eyes again, her breath steadying. Alex didn't know what to do next. Should he leave her? Should he try to find out more about her? Or, even more pressing, should he report this to his commanding officers? But Alex didn't move. Something deep inside told him that leaving her was not an option. He had seen enough death, enough destruction to last a lifetime. But this was different. This girl, no matter how strange or alien she seemed, needed help. And Alex was the only one there to give it. As the hours passed, the rain outside began to ease. The battle seemed to be moving away, but Alex remained by her side. He stayed awake, alert, ready for anything, but his mind kept returning to her. Who was she? And why had fate brought them together on that night, in the middle of a war? He couldn't answer those questions. Not yet. But as he sat there, watching her sleep, he made a silent promise to himself. He would protect her, no matter what the cost. No one else could know about this. The world was already at war. Adding this unknown element to the equation could change everything. And so, with the girl in his care, Alex knew his life had just taken a turn he could never have predicted. The war was far from over, but for the first time, he felt like he was fighting for something worth saving. The years passed quickly after that night. The war slowly came to an end, and the world began to rebuild itself, though the scars were still everywhere, on the land, in the hearts of soldiers, and in the minds of survivors. Alex had kept his promise to the blue-skinned girl. He had protected her, hidden her away in the abandoned building until she was strong enough to leave. But once she regained her strength, she vanished, disappearing into the night like a shadow, leaving Alex with nothing but memories of a time that felt too surreal to believe. Life, as it often does, moved on. Alex went back to his duties, trying to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. The war had changed him in ways he couldn't fully explain. The horrors of battle, the loss of friends, and the constant fear of death had taken their toll. But what haunted him the most was the girl. Her strange blue skin, her eyes full of mystery, and the sense that she had come from a world beyond anything he could imagine. He often found himself thinking about her, wondering where she was and if she was okay. He had no idea where she had gone after leaving him. Had she gone back to her people? Or had she simply disappeared into the world, blending in like an ordinary person? Alex couldn't stop wondering. As time passed, Alex became a symbol of hope for the people. He was celebrated as a hero, one of the few who had survived the horrors of the war and lived to tell the tale. But the title didn't bring him peace. It didn't fill the emptiness inside him. In a way, he felt like a ghost, always carrying the weight of things he couldn't talk about, things he couldn't share with anyone. The blue-skinned girl, or whatever she was, had been the only person he had ever truly felt connected to, but she was gone, and Alex was left to carry on alone, with only questions and a longing for something he couldn't understand. Life in the post-war world wasn't easy. Cities were in ruins, governments were rebuilding, and humanity was struggling to find its place in a new order. But despite all the chaos, Alex tried to make the best of it. He worked to help the survivors, rebuilding homes, providing for those who had lost everything, and trying to bring some normalcy back to the world. Yet, no matter how much he tried to move forward, he couldn't escape the memory of her, the girl he had saved, the girl whose fate was tied to his own. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, her blue skin glowing in the dim light, and her soft voice whispering words he couldn't quite remember. A year passed, then another, and another. The girl was nothing but a distant memory, a chapter in his past that he couldn't seem to leave behind. But the world had its own way of moving on. Alex found himself part of a new army of peacekeepers, sent to maintain order in the rebuilding cities. It was a new war, one of survival and reconstruction, but not of violence. This was a time of diplomacy, of negotiation, and of working together to rebuild what had been lost. Still, there were days when Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He had everything he needed: friends, work, a purpose. But it wasn't enough. There was always an emptiness, a space that couldn't be filled. And in the quiet moments of the night, as he lay in bed, he would sometimes whisper her name, wondering if she ever thought of him. And then, one day, everything changed. It was the anniversary of the end of the war, 10 years to the day since the girl had crossed his path. Alex had just finished a long day of work, helping with the reconstruction of a hospital, when he felt an unexpected chill run down his spine. He stood on the balcony of the building he was working in, looking out over the city that had been slowly coming back to life. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the horizon. But something felt different. The air was heavy, as if something was about to happen. And then he heard it. A voice, soft but unmistakable, calling out from behind him. Human. Alex turned quickly, his heart racing. There, standing in the doorway, was the last person he ever expected to see, the blue-skinned girl. But she was no longer the fragile, wounded girl he had saved. She stood tall, her presence commanding and powerful, her eyes filled with something he couldn't place, something both familiar and alien. The years had changed her, just as they had changed the world. And she wasn't alone. The world had changed, and she had returned. But this time she wasn't asking for help. This time she had come to deliver a message. Kneel, human. Alex stood frozen. His heart pounded in his chest, and for a moment, the world around him seemed to blur. The voice was unmistakable, soft but commanding. And the girl who had once been a fragile, dying figure was now standing before him, full of power and presence. The years had changed her, and the sight of her was almost too much to process. She didn't look like the same girl he had saved that night. Her once pale, almost sickly appearance was gone. Instead, her skin shimmered a deeper shade of blue, glowing faintly in the dimming light. Her eyes, once filled with confusion and fear, now carried an intense authority, a fire that Alex couldn't look away from. The air between them felt charged, as if something beyond the ordinary was about to unfold. Kneel, human, she repeated, her tone colder this time, as if the words carried a weight far heavier than anything Alex had ever encountered. The command hit him like a slap, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. Kneel? To her. The girl he had once saved from death? But before he could make sense of it all, she stepped forward. There was no hesitation in her movement, just a quiet strength that made Alex feel small, insignificant. Despite everything he had endured in the war, the years had transformed her, and Alex could tell that she was no longer the same being he had helped all those years ago. "Why are you here?" Alex asked, his voice shaky. He had so many questions, but this one seemed the most important. The girl looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding how much to say. Finally she spoke, her voice cold and distant. "I am here because the galaxy has changed," she said. "The war that you fought in was only one battle in a much larger conflict. And now your world, your people, must choose a side." Alex felt his breath catch in his throat. "Choose a side," he repeated, not understanding. "Yes," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "There are forces in the universe far more powerful than anything you can imagine, and the humans are caught between them. My people, the ones you saved me from, are coming, and they will destroy everything in their path unless you kneel before me." Her words were heavy, each one carrying the weight of something beyond Alex's understanding, but the look in her eyes made it clear that she wasn't asking for a simple alliance. She was offering him a choice that could change the fate of humanity. Alex's mind was racing. He thought of everything he had been through, everything he had seen, the wars, the battles, the loss of comrades. His life had been shaped by conflict. But this was something entirely different. He had no way of knowing if her story was true. But one thing was clear. She was no longer the helpless girl he had rescued. "What do you want from me?" Alex asked. "What's this about kneeling? What does it mean?" The girl's gaze softened, for a moment. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, as if a part of her still remembered the bond they had shared so many years ago. But it was fleeting, replaced by a hardness that reminded Alex how much had changed. "I want you to stand with me," she said, her voice quieter now, almost as if she were explaining something to an old friend. "I am the leader of the Zirath, the last of my people. My return is not just for you, but for all of humanity. The time has come for you to choose. Join me and accept the power I offer, or stand against me and risk your people's extinction." Alex didn't know how to respond. Everything in him screamed to turn away, to refuse her, but something else, a part of him he didn't even understand, was drawn to her words. She had been a symbol of hope to him once, and now, in her new form, she was offering something greater than just survival. She was offering power, control, and a chance to reshape the future. Why me? Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why do you need me? The girl didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked past him, her gaze distant. Because, Alex, she said finally, you saved me, and now I'm giving you the chance to save your world. The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Alex thought he could hear the echoes of the past, of the war, of the girl, and of the choices he had yet to make. But before he could gather his thoughts, she spoke again. You will kneel or you will fall. That is the only choice left for you. With those final words, the weight of her presence seemed to press down on him, filling the space with a tension that was impossible to ignore. And in that moment, Alex knew that his life, and the fate of humanity, was about to change forever. Alex stood motionless, the girl's words echoing in his mind like a distant drumbeat. The weight of her command was suffocating, pressing down on him with an unrelenting force. The world around him seemed to shrink, leaving only the two of them standing in that quiet, fading sunset. The girl, no, the leader of the Zirath, was different now. Gone was the frightened, wounded creature he had saved in the middle of a war. She had transformed into something else entirely, something that filled Alex with both awe and fear. She was powerful, commanding, and her presence was overwhelming. He didn't know what to do, where to go, or even what to believe anymore. His whole life had been shaped by one harsh truth: survival in a world filled with conflict. But now, standing before him, was a choice he never expected. A choice that could change the future of humanity forever. Why should I join you? Alex asked, trying to steady his voice. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but he needed answers. He couldn't make such a monumental decision without understanding more. What happens if I don't? What does your side want with Earth? The girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a step back, her gaze turning toward the horizon. Her eyes reflected something far away, something beyond Alex's understanding. Then she spoke, her voice cold and distant, but with a strange intensity. The universe is not what you think it is, Alex. Your people are so small, so young. The war you fought in, the battles you've seen, they were just ripples in the ocean of what's really happening out there. The Zirath are not the only force to contend with. There are others, powers that can reshape entire galaxies with a single thought. They are coming for your world, and they will not stop until they have what they want. Alex tried to absorb her words, but they were too big, too overwhelming. His whole life had been about defending his people, protecting what was left of humanity. But this was something entirely new. The war against the Zirath had seemed like the ultimate struggle, the final battle. Yet, now it felt like the beginning of something much larger, something he wasn't prepared for. What do you want from us? Alex asked, his voice growing more urgent. What does kneeling have to do with all of this? I don't understand. I saved you. I risked my life for you. Why now? Why come back like this? The girl turned her gaze back to him, her eyes hardening. Because, Alex, humanity is at a crossroads. You have two choices. Join me and accept the power that will help you survive the coming storm, or refuse and face the destruction of everything you know. I'm giving you the chance to change the fate of your people. The choice is yours. Alex's mind raced. Was she telling the truth? Could humanity really be in danger from forces beyond their comprehension? The thought terrified him. His training, his experience, had never prepared him for anything like this. He had spent his life fighting on the ground, facing enemies he could see, enemies with weapons and technology that were deadly but tangible. This was something different. You want me to join you, Alex said, his words more of a statement than a question. You want me to kneel before you and accept whatever power you offer. But what if I don't want that? What if I want to fight my own battles? What if I don't want to give in to this power you represent? The girl's expression didn't change. Her eyes remained cold, calculating. "Then you will be a fool," she said, her voice now filled with a sharp edge. "You will lead your people to their doom. The powers that threaten Earth will not be swayed by your pride or your stubbornness. They will destroy you. But if you kneel, if you accept my offer, you will stand alongside me, and together we can build a new future, one where humanity has a place in the cosmos." Alex felt a sinking feeling in his chest. He didn't know what was worse, joining her and becoming part of something he didn't fully understand, or standing against her and risking everything he had ever fought for. The stakes were higher than anything he had ever imagined. "I don't know what to believe anymore," Alex said, his voice soft but filled with doubt. "I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust anything anymore." The girl's gaze softened for a brief moment, but only briefly. "Trust is earned, Alex, and I'm offering you a chance to earn the future of your people. Don't waste it." With that, she turned and began to walk away, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Alex stood there, frozen, as the weight of her words settled deep within him. He had always known that the war would change the world, but he never imagined it would lead him to this. He had a choice to make, a choice that would shape the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. And for the first time, Alex wasn't sure if he was strong enough to make it. The days after the girl's sudden return were a blur for Alex. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said, the choices she had laid out before him. Her words haunted him, echoing in his mind even in his waking moments. The war was over, but the world had not stopped moving. New battles were taking shape, ones that Alex wasn't prepared for. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a man standing at the crossroads of humanity's survival. The night before the decision, Alex couldn't sleep. His mind raced in circles, endlessly turning over the choice that was hanging over him like a sword. Kneel or resist. Join her and accept the power of the Zirath, or stand alone, fighting, against an enemy too powerful to comprehend. The weight of it all pressed down on him with each passing hour, each silent moment that brought him closer to an answer he wasn't sure he could find. He had always been a fighter. He had always believed that strength came from standing tall, from fighting with everything you had for what you believed in. But now, as the world rested in the balance, Alex wondered if he had been wrong all along. Maybe it wasn't about fighting anymore. Maybe it was about survival, about the greater good. And if that meant kneeling before someone he barely understood, could he really refuse? The sun was just starting to rise when Alex left his apartment, the cool morning air hitting his face as he stepped out into the streets. The city was quiet, still, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. He walked aimlessly, his thoughts still clouded with uncertainty. He couldn't talk to anyone about this. No one could understand the pressure he was feeling, the burden that weighed down on him. As he wandered, his thoughts turned to the girl, the leader of the Zirath. He remembered the way she had looked when she returned, so different from the frightened girl he had rescued. She had changed in ways he couldn't fully grasp, and her offer still echoed in his mind. Kneel, or risk it all. But what if she was, right? What if humanity's pride, its refusal to accept the reality of the universe, was what would bring about its end? She had told him about the forces out there, the ones who could destroy everything in an instant. Was this the only chance? Humanity had to survive. Alex didn't know. He had always fought for freedom, for the right to choose his path. But now, the freedom he had fought for seemed like a luxury that could cost everyone their future. As he walked through the empty streets, his mind kept returning to the people he had fought for, the survivors, the families trying to rebuild their lives after the war. They didn't know about the Zirath. They didn't know about the dangers that were coming for them. They were just trying to survive, to rebuild a world that had been torn apart. And he had promised to protect them. He had promised that the sacrifices made during the war would mean something. Alex stopped in front of a small park, watching as a few children played on swings in the distance. They laughed, unaware of the darkness that threatened them. The innocence of their laughter hit him hard. They deserved a future, a chance to grow up in a world that wasn't constantly at war. But would they have that chance if he refused the girl's offer? Would he be able to protect them without her power? He couldn't answer that question. Turning away from the park, Alex made his way toward the building where he had first met the girl. The place felt like a distant memory now, a time before the choice that was about to define everything. As he approached, he saw her standing at the entrance waiting for him. Her eyes locked onto his as soon as he stepped into view, and, for a moment, it felt like everything else in the world faded away. She didn't speak at first. She didn't need to. Her presence alone said everything. She had come to claim what she had been waiting for. "I'm ready," Alex said, his voice steady but full of uncertainty. He had made his decision, though the weight of it still hung heavily on him. The girl's eyes softened, just for a moment. "You've chosen then?" she asked, her voice almost kind. "You've chosen to kneel before me?" Alex nodded slowly, feeling the gravity of the decision pressing down on him. "I've chosen to stand with you," he said, "for humanity's future, for the chance to survive. But I need to understand. Why do you need me? What part do I play in all of this?" She stepped closer to him, her expression serious. "You are more than just a soldier, Alex. You've been chosen because you understand what it means to fight. You understand what's at stake. And now you have the power to lead your people into a new age. An age where they are no longer just pawns in a game of survival." Alex looked into her eyes, feeling a strange sense of clarity. He wasn't just kneeling before her for power. He was choosing to save the world he loved. And maybe, just maybe, that meant sacrificing parts of himself, his pride, his independence, for the greater good. "I'll kneel," Alex said, his voice firm this time. "But not just to you. I'm kneeling for humanity's future." The girl's eyes gleamed with a mixture of approval and something else, something deeper. "Then stand with me, Alex. Together, we will reshape the galaxy." And as they stood there side by side, Alex knew that the future of Earth was now in his hands. The world had changed, and humanity's last stand had just begun. The girl, no, the leader of the Zerath, had left him with a heavy burden. The idea of kneeling before her, of accepting the power she offered, felt wrong. He had spent his life fighting for freedom, for humanity's chance to make its own decisions. How could he bow to someone, anyone, who demanded control over that freedom? But as the days passed, Alex found it impossible to ignore the truth of her words. Humanity was not prepared for the enemies that were coming. His experience in the war had taught him that. But this new threat, this vast, unfathomable power, was something else entirely. Could they stand a chance against it? Or would they simply be crushed under the weight of forces beyond their understanding? He didn't have the answers, but every day it became clearer to him that something had to change. The world was rebuilding itself after the war, but it was fragile, far too fragile. People were starting to hope again, but hope alone wouldn't protect them. Alex spent hours walking through the streets of the city, the scars of the war still visible on every corner. The buildings were in ruins, many still half destroyed, as though they were waiting for someone to come and finish the job. He passed families, children, survivors, people trying to rebuild what had been taken from them. They didn't know what. Alex knew. They didn't know about the larger forces at play, the ones that would come for them if they didn't act. What was he supposed to do? He had always been a soldier, trained to fight and protect, not to lead in times like this. He had never imagined a world where power came from something other than weapons and tactics. He had never imagined a world where survival depended on something so vast and unknowable. The girl's offer, her ultimatum, stuck with him. It was tempting. He could see it. By joining her, by kneeling before her, Alex could have the power to save humanity. The Zirath weren't just offering survival. They were offering a place in the galaxy, a future beyond the war-torn world that Alex knew. But what would he be giving up in the process? Would he be giving up his own humanity? Would he be turning his back on the very people he had fought for? As he walked, lost in his thoughts, he was stopped by a voice. Alex. He turned to see an old friend, Michael, standing in the doorway of a nearby building. Michael had fought beside him in the war, and though they had both seen things that no one should have to, they had kept fighting side by side. "Hey, Michael," Alex said, offering a weary smile. "How are you holding up?" Michael gave a small shrug, his eyes tired but sharp. "Better than most, I guess. But the truth is, Alex, we're all struggling. The war's over, but it doesn't feel like it. People are rebuilding, but there's this unease, like something's coming, and no one knows what it is." Alex nodded, his thoughts racing. "I know what you mean. It feels like we're just waiting for the next fight." "You think it's over?" Michael asked quietly. "The war, I mean. You think we've seen the worst of it?" Alex looked at his friend, knowing that his answer might be more than just about the physical war. "No, I think we've only seen the beginning." Michael frowned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Alex hesitated, glancing over his shoulder, as if to make sure no one was listening. "I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen something bigger than just us. The girl I saved, she's back. She's not the same. She's offering humanity something we can't even begin to understand." Michael's eyes widened. "You're talking about her, aren't you? The alien?" Alex nodded, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on him. "Yes. And she says humanity has to choose. Kneel before her, accept her power, or face destruction. I don't know what's coming, but it's big. Bigger than anything we've ever fought." For a long moment, there was silence between them. Michael looked away, his hands rubbing his face as if he were trying to process everything. Finally, he spoke. "Alex, you've always done what was right. You've always fought for what mattered. But this is different. We're not just fighting other soldiers anymore. We're fighting something we don't understand. Maybe it's time to listen to her. Maybe it's time to kneel." The words hit Alex harder than he expected. He had always trusted Michael's judgment. But this was a choice unlike any other. He could fight, he could resist, or he could listen and accept the power that was being offered. But what would it cost him? What would it cost humanity? Alex didn't have the answers. But he knew one thing for sure. The price of war was more than just lives lost. It was about what you were willing to sacrifice for the chance to survive. The days stretched on, each one feeling heavier than the last. Alex could no longer escape the reality of the decision that lay before him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blue-skinned girl's face, her words repeating in his mind like a drumbeat he couldn't shut out. Kneel or fight. Choose a side or face extinction. It was too much for him to process. The weight of the world, the fate of humanity, rested in his hands. He had been trained to fight, trained to protect his people. But this wasn't a battle of soldiers or tactics. This wasn't a war fought with guns or bombs. This was a war of survival, a war of choices far beyond what he had ever imagined. Alex knew that whatever decision he made would shape the future of Earth. But what was the right choice? Should he kneel before her, accept the power she offered, and join the Zirath in the battle against the forces that threatened to destroy everything? Or should he stand against her, risk everything, and fight for a future that remained uncertain? The thought of kneeling before her, of accepting a life in service to someone who had once been his savior, felt wrong. He had always believed that freedom was worth fighting for. He had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its ability to choose its own path, to fight against oppression and tyranny. But now, standing at the edge of this impossible decision, Alex wondered if his ideals were enough to save his people. The war had taken so much from him. It had taken his friends, his comrades, and his sense of purpose. But it hadn't taken his will to fight. He wasn't sure he could ever be the man who knelt before anyone, especially not someone who had been an unknown alien to him just a few short years ago. And yet, something in the back of his mind told him that rejecting her could mean the end of everything he had ever fought for. Alex sat alone in his small apartment, staring out the window at the city that had begun to heal after the war. It was a strange feeling, this quiet, this peace after so much destruction. He watched as the streets filled with people, each of them trying to put their lives back together, trying to build a future from the ashes. They didn't know what, he knew. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't understand the danger that loomed over them. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. He stood, his heart racing. It was late, too late for anyone to be visiting. He opened the door cautiously, only to find Michael standing there, his face filled with concern. "Alex, we need to talk," Michael said quietly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the Zyrath and everything that's going on, and I think it's time we had a real conversation about this." Alex nodded, stepping aside to let his friend in. The weight of his friend's words felt like an anchor, pulling him deeper into the confusion he had been feeling for days. Michael had always been the voice of reason, the one person who had never backed down from a fight. But now, his tone was different. There was an edge of fear in his voice, fear that Alex couldn't ignore. "I don't know what to do, Michael," Alex admitted, his voice rough. "I don't know if I can accept what she's offering. It feels like betrayal. But if I refuse, if I stand against her, I'm not sure what'll happen. She says it's humanity's last chance." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I get it. I know what you mean. But here's the thing, Alex. We don't have the luxury of ignoring this. We can't keep pretending like everything will be okay. The universe is bigger than us, and if we don't join forces with her, we might not have a chance at all." Alex's stomach churned at the thought. "You want me to kneel too?" he asked, his voice sharp. "No, I'm not saying that," Michael replied, quickly. "I'm saying we have to think about the bigger picture. It's not just about pride or whether we like her. It's about survival. Humanity has always fought for survival, and now it's more than just our world at stake. We have to make the hard choices, even if we don't like them." Alex turned away, looking out the window again. The words echoed in his mind. Survival. That's what it came down to. But at what cost? "What if I don't kneel?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if I refuse her offer?" Michael was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was grim. "Then we fight. And if we fight, we might lose. We might lose everything." Alex's heart felt heavy. He had never wanted this. He had never wanted to be a leader, to carry the weight of so many lives on his shoulders. But now, there was no turning back. The choice wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every single person on Earth. And deep down, Alex knew what he had to do. The world was changing, and humanity's survival depended on decisions that were beyond anything they had ever faced. The ultimate choice was his to make.